Shalom, my friends. Welcome to weekly Parsha with Yehuda Yisrael. This week's Parsha is Parshat Behar, and I believe it's going through chapter 20. This is a long chapter in Leviticus, but we're getting toward the end of the book, so let's finish strong. We got, and the Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, when you come to the land that I am giving you, the land shall rest a Sabbath to the Lord." So it's talking about the Shemitah year, where you have sort of like a Sabbath for the land after 7 years. So you sow it for 6, and then you let it rest, and you don't do sowing or pruning the vineyard, and certain just you basically have a Sabbath, the land a Sabbath, just as you have. And it says, the produce of the Sabbath and the land shall be yours to eat for you, for the male and the female slaves, for your hired worker and resident who live with you. Great. And all the produce may be eaten also by your domestic animals and the beasts that are in your land. And you shall know, or you shall count for yourself 7 sabbatical years, and 7 years 7 times. Oh, this is exciting. And the days of these 7 sabbatical years shall amount to 49 years for you. And you shall proclaim with shofar blasts in the 7th month. On the 10th of the month, the Day of Atonement, you shall sound the shofar throughout your land. Now, this is really significant to bring up because a lot of people, and I'll do a video on this when we get closer to Rosh Hashanah, but a lot of, messianic and, ignorant people will say that Rosh Hashanah is some rabbinic creation and that there is no new year in the context of Rosh Hashanah. Well, when you look in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 40, and like I said, when we get closer to Rosh Hashanah, I'll make a video about it. It is in the context of this, what is called the Yovel, the Jubilee year, right? And that starts in the 7th month, which is the month of Tishrei. And this is where we get this idea of the beginning of the year. Yes, in one sense, Nisan is the beginning of the year, but Tishrei also has significance of being the first of the year in this sense of what is known as Rosh Hashanah. And if you look in the book of Ezekiel, maybe at the end of the video, I'll give you a sneak peek at it, but I'll probably just make a new video explaining this in more detail. But it's fascinating to see that there is a sense of a new year in association with the Yovel, the Jubilee year, that is actually referenced in the book of Ezekiel regarding Rosh Hashanah. So that is what this is, also known as Yom Teruah, right? But I guess it sounded on the Day of Atonement. That's actually the 10th of the month is when Ezekiel saw the vision of the Merkava, which is that the vision that or not the Merkava, rather. Sorry, he saw the vision of the third temple. That in Ezekiel chapter 40, he saw the vision of the third temple, which of course Christians on the whole seem to reject. Anyway, so, and you shall sanctify the 50th year and proclaim freedom for slaves throughout the land. All who live on it. It shall be a jubilee for you, Yovel, and each man to his property. You shall return each man to his family. So that's the jubilee year, right? And it is in the month of Tishrei, which is associated with Rosh Hashanah, Yom Teruah, and on the 10th day of what is known as Yom HaKippurim. So, and during this year, you shall return each man to his property. So it's an interesting concept. From what I understand, we know what the Shemitah year is now, and we do keep Shemitah in the land of Israel today. However, the Yovel year has kind of been lost. So people don't really know how to deal with that now. So in the times of Mashiach, when the future Messiah comes, we will know. It says, when you make a sale to your fellow Jew and you purchase from the hand of your fellow Jew, you shall not wrong another. So basically just have good business. According to the number of years after the Jubilee, you shall purchase from your fellow Jew, according to the number of years of crops. He shall sell you. And then it's just talking about the business dealings during these times. You shall not wrong one man, his fellow Jew, and you shall fear your God, for I am the Lord your God. You shall, so basically keep all these statutes and laws. So, moving on, it says, the land will then yield its fruit, and you will eat to satiety, satiety, whatever, however you pronounce it. It's not every day I have trouble pronouncing English words. And live upon it securely. And if you should say, what will we eat in the month? What will we eat in the 7th year? We will not sow and we will not gather our own produce. Know then that I will command my blessing for you in the 6th year, and it will produce yield for 3 years. Okay, so faith in Hashem that you will get 3 years worth of produce by not, because it can be nerve-wracking to rely upon not sowing on the, fields. So Hashem is guaranteeing a 3 years worth of produce. So interesting, miraculous things that go on. And you shall sow in the 8th year while still eating the old crops in the 9th, and until the arrival of the crop, you will eat the old crop. The land is not to be sold permanently, for the land belongs to me, for your strangers in temporary residence with me. Therefore, throughout the land of your possession, you shall give redemption for the land. Wonderful. So, moving on to the next part. Oh, wait, did we miss anything important? I thought I had the commentary on, but I guess I didn't. Oh, interesting. It's talking about the festival of Sukkot with regards to Shemitah. Like I said, I don't want to go into too much unless I find something that's, relevant to what we usually talk about on the channel. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but you can read some of the Rashi to get some more context. If your brother becomes destitute and sells some of his inherited property, his redeemer who is related to him shall come forth and redeem his brother's sale. If a man does not have a redeemer, but he gains enough means to afford redemption, he calculated the years which the land has been sold, and the remainder to the man who he sold it, and he may return his inheritance. Okay, so this is just business as usual. If he can't afford to repay him, he shall sell, or his sale shall remain in his possession of the one who purchased it until the Jubilee year, and after the Jubilee year, it shall go out and revert to his inheritance. Okay, so a little bit of back and forth there. When a man, and like I said, this is sort of stuff that it's a little bit hard for us to relate to today, even as religious Jews, because we're not really observing the Yovel year in the same sense. So these laws are studied out, in more detail, but, very much so. However, it's not something that maybe we practically relate to today. When a man sells his residential house in a walled city, its redemption may take place until the completion of the year of its sale. Its period of redemption shall be a full year, but it is not redeemed by the end. If it is not redeemed by the end of the complete year, the house which is sitting as well shall remain permanently property of the one who purchased it. Throughout his generations, it shall not leave his possession in Jubilee. Okay, interesting. But houses in open cities which do not have a wall surrounding them are to be considered as field land. It may have redemption and shall leave the purchaser's purchase in the Jubilee. Okay. Regarding the city's Levites, the houses in the inherited cities forever have the right of redemption for the Levites, so special status for them. If one purchases from the Levites, whether a house or inherited city, will leave possession of the purchaser in the Jubilee because of the houses and the cities of the Levites are inherited property amidst the children of Israel, right? They didn't have like a particular land for themselves, right? So they had an interesting status there. A field in the open areas of their cities cannot be sold because it is their eternal inheritance, right? So, fine. If your brother becomes destitute and his hand falters beside you, you can support him whether a convert or a resident, so that he can live with you. You shall not take from interest or increase, and you shall fear the Lord your God, and let your brother live with you. So this is the ribis. Is that how you said? Yeah, basically they're saying that this is an interesting thing about the charging the interest. Right. You shall not give him your money with interest, nor shall you give him food with increase. I am the Lord your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan, to be a God to you. So that's that. And if your brother becomes destitute with you and is sold to you, do not work him with slave labor. As an employee of a hired resident, he shall, so okay, different status. Until the Jubilee year he shall work with you, and then he shall, yeah, this is the interesting way it's described. Then he shall leave you, he and his children with him, and he shall return to his family and resume the status of his fathers. Okay, so freed, for they are servants who I brought out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as a slave is sold. You shall not work him with rigor. You shall fear your God. Your male slave or female slave whom you may have from the nations that are around you, from them may you acquire a male slave or female slave. This is always a fun part to read, right? And also from the children of residents among you, from you may acquire slaves from the family that is with you, whom they begot in your land, and they shall become your inheritance, right? So whatever we describe slave, obviously it's a different concept than what we're understood. You shall hold on to them as inheritance from your children after you as acquired property, and thus have them serve you forever. But as for your brethren, the children of Israel, a man shall not work his brother with rigor. Okay. Anyway, keep going to finish up this. Like I said, we're still on chapter 25, right? If a resident non-Jew gains wealth with you and your brother becomes destitute with him and is sold to as a resident non-Jew among you, or an idol, the family of a non-Jew, after he is sold, he shall have redemption. One of his brothers shall redeem him. Just gives different relatives who can redeem. You can calculate with this purchaser the number of years from his being sold from the Jubilee year. So much math in this Parsha. I'm not a math guy, so in case you guys are wondering why I'm a little bit like rushing over this quickly, admittedly, I need some more time to really process a lot of this. The purchase price shall be divided among the number of years as the days of a hired worker. He shall work with them. If there are still many years according to them, he shall return his redemption money out of the money which he purchased. But if only a few remain until the Jubilee year, he shall make the same calculation according to his years that remain until Jubilee. He shall return the redemption money. He shall be hired as an employee year by year, and he shall not enslave him with rigor in your sight. Okay. And if he is not redeemed through any of these ways, he shall go out through the Jubilee year, he and his children with him. Okay, so fine. So the Jubilee year is kind of the great equalizer. For the children of Israel, servants to me, they are my servants who I took out of Egypt, and I am the Lord your God. Okay, Leviticus 26. For next week's Parsha is going to be, as you all know, I've been focusing a lot on Leviticus 26 in a lot of my videos. And I'm excited to get to the later parts of the chapter. It says, you shall not make idols for yourself. You shall not set up a statue or monument for yourself. That's what's interesting. It says, you shall not make idols for yourselves, nor shall you set up a statue or monument for yourself. So those are separate commandments. And a lot of people will say, well, I didn't make Jesus. I didn't make him into an idol. He's not man-made. And that's not really what the context is dealing with. When it talks about like making idols, it's not just about making them out of stone, right? It's, the moon, the sun, and the stars, or any sort of celestial body. It's not limited to man-made things that you're not allowed to worship. So, Adam, the first man, we're not allowed to worship Adam. He wasn't man-made, right? We'll get into that later when we get in the book of Deuteronomy in more detail. But anyway, this is kind of like getting you primed for that. And in your land you shall not place a pavement of stone on which to prostrate yourselves, for I am the Lord your God. And that's an interesting commandment. They say people use a stone floor to make a covering over the ground. Yeah, that's an interesting one. You shall keep my Sabbaths and fear my sanctuary. I am the Lord. Yeah. So this is Parsha Behar. Yeah, it's a little dry, I know. Not a lot of, tidbits of information. Well, the Rosh Hashanah connection, I think, is important. I'll make a video on that later regarding Ezekiel 40, regarding the Jubilee year. It's literally referred to as Rosh Hashanah, and it's on Yom HaKippurim during the first month of the year, which is known as Tishrei, and Yom Teruah, so, which is, it's a holiday. It's just, it gets frustrating when Christians try to argue, or people who, think Rabbinic Judaism is some sort of tradition of men. No, it's in the Tanakh, the idea of Rosh Hashanah, and it's associated with the seventh month, also known as Tishrei. Rosh Hashanah is synonymous with Yom Teruah. So anyway, I hope this video has been a blessing to you all. Shalom Aleichem.